The judge favored Google in this because they say today's Gen AI companies are in a better position to disrupt traditional search than others have been in decades, and that it prefers to allow market forces to work. That doesn't seem like a long-term positive for Google because ChatGPT is taking market share from Google, right? Yes, Google makes money, but Apple, I think, is a real winner. Let's talk about the big news of the day, and this is Google. Google's up really big today after the ruling came down that it won't be forced to sell their browser. Who's the company who's going to buy them? Perplexity, right?
Well, they were going to buy Chrome.
They were going to buy Chrome, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny.
For 30-some billion, if I remember right.
Yeah, so Google's up big along with Apple, which they maintain that partnerships. Pretty big news. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad that you put this in CRA. So Google's up about 77% since November of 2023. So that's good. We've held it just about 2 years. Listen, we've been saying this, and this is an easy victory lap, so I don't want to come across as condescending, but I'm not smart enough to prove it, but I'm smart enough and I'm a student of history to understand politics. And we were saying if you broke up Google, it would be a buy. And really, this is kind of a win-win situation. Google wasn't performing that great. It was underperforming its peers. I get all that. The risk of loss here is around a trade. You shouldn't be, worried about the business of Google so much. It's just whether or not your timing is correct. We were more buy and holders in this. Frank, I'll let you go over some details. I'll sprinkle some in. But I just think, I guess I don't know how Google isn't a buy here. If you didn't own any, you should if you've been following us. And I don't know why Apple, which I believe, Frank, didn't you say that was one of your favorite big stocks to own right now?
One of the best stocks to own right now.
All you need to know is they're going to continue getting $20 billion plus free just for Google to have the privilege to be on the Florida iPhone. I think both are big, boring buys. I know a lot of people don't enjoy those kind of buys, but do not, our goal should be able to make money. And when you get layups like this or more, I think risk reward in your favor with big stocks like this. We've done this before with Exxon and different stocks. I think this is a layup.
Yeah, and when I look at Apple too, their stock has significantly underperformed. The S&P is up like 12% over the past year, and Apple's up 3%. But I think the question was, Daniel, what was the best? It wasn't just hyperscalers, but the Mag 7 companies to own, and I said Apple okay. By far. And I love Apple here. And I'm going to tell you, so it's very big news for Apple, probably even bigger than Google, because they can continue to receive those payments from Google for being the default search engine on iPhones. I cannot tell you how huge that is for Google, given there's 153 million iPhone users in America that are on their phone for hours, and Google steals all of this and what you're doing. It's funny, too, because I have the YouTube channel, and that's Google. So I was in Dropbox, and I have all of our services through Dropbox when it comes to the company, and I wanted to show someone I have a file in there, an old file that I converted, which I'm going to show at our conference in November. My dad used to do this for 30 years, and he competed. I don't know if he competed against a monkey. Right? Yeah, he had a contest against a monkey, and it was on Dateline. It was one of the number one shows on Dateline before they went into like all the craziness and murders and stuff in the 90s. And they had I think it was 10 or 12 episodes they had on it because the monkey actually picked 5 stocks from a Rolodex, and my dad picks 5 stocks. And I told my dad I said, he's like, you think I should do it? I said, it's going to be huge publicity. I said, just don't freaking lose. And the monkey picked Kroger, which is bananas. And he picked another stock that actually got taken over right away. So my dad was losing for like a year. Anyway, I had a clip of that, and I showed it on Dropbox, right? And it was an old clip from an old VHS that we put into like a DVD format that I put there, right? And this was about 4 or 5 days ago. So I'm watching like old shows of old reruns of Yellowstone, like the past couple of days, and they're telling me how I can get the DVD sets for like 3 different things. It wasn't just Yellowstone, it was for other things like DVDs. You can get your DVD set and stuff like that. I'm like, why would they be telling me about DVDs since it's technology that disappeared 10 years ago? And I wonder if that's the case. My point is, when you have 153 million people and they're searching for everything on their phone, they use their phone, and Google's taking that information, throwing them through that Gemini system 2.5. Holy shit. I mean, they know every single thing about you. It's huge. So it's great for Google. It's great for Apple. And I'll get there in a minute for Apple. But one thing that I'll mention, which is not being talked about in the media, to judge what they said about Google, they favored Google in this because they say today's Gen AI companies are I'm quoting here, in a better position to disrupt traditional search than others have been in decades, and that it prefers to allow market forces to work. That doesn't seem like a long-term positive for Google because ChatGPT is taking market share from Google, right? And they're saying, well, there's a lot of competition now, so we're okay with it. So yes, it's good. Yes, Google makes money, but Apple, I think, is a real winner. Why? Because they're going to get, it's close to 25 billion. I think it's 23, 24 billion plus, right?
It's over 20. Yeah, I've seen different. Yeah, but
that's from Google every year. So that's 25 billion for basically adding something to an existing product or a platform. And I want you to think about that for a minute, because that means you're generating massive, massive, massive margins on that. Okay, you're not creating this whole new hardware device, right? It's already created. It's already there, and you just signed a partnership. So the margins for this is huge. And if you don't think this is huge for Apple, Apple's growth model, 100% is based on its services division. It's not based on selling more iPhones. It's a saturated market. They're still generating, they did good last quarter with iPhone sales, but that's, the hardware part is the saturated market. It's a services part. And when you look at how much 25 billion is, which includes the licensing, right, represents 20 to 25% of its services revenue for Apple. That's how big it is. To put it in earnings perspective, it's $1.40 a share of the $7.30 a share that Apple's projected to earn in 2025, which represents 20% of its total projected earnings. If you think this is big for Apple, this is massive for Apple. Apple should be up like 5%, 7%, not 3% or 2% on this news. This is huge for Apple. Apple could, listen, once Apple starts incorporating, and maybe it's Gemini or whatever, large language models and all this stuff into their phone, which they're going to do, and you're probably going to see it right away because they messed up so bad last year, so bad with Apple Intelligence. I mean, the sky's the limit for this company. The service revenue is going to explode, but now you're constantly getting that check. You don't have to negotiate with other partners or use other browsers and things like that, which is still open to you could do. But you're still getting that nice check. And that's the growth model, services revenue. Imagine losing 20% of your services revenue. Don't get me wrong. You'll get 10% of that back, right? Pretty much most of it. But I don't know about the whole 20%. Imagine your earnings go down 20%. What would happen to Apple stock? It's $3.5 trillion, right? You're looking at what? 600 billion? Right? I mean, that's bigger than
serious,
600 billion, right? I'm throwing numbers at you, but 600 billion is probably bigger than the market cap, I would say, of 95% of the companies in the S&P 500. And we're used to talking trillions. 600 billion is massive. It's massive. That's like Eli Lilly right now. It's a little bit above that market cap. But that's insane. So this is really big news that this came out. It was kind of expected. But you say it's kind of expected because the analysts going on TV say it's kind of expected. But when you see Google up 8% and Apple up 3%, maybe it wasn't expected or factored in. So this is really good news for the stock and for both of these names. Although, let's see. I don't think you're going to see the company split up. But last thing here, Daniel, I will say, splitting up the company, the value of this company would be worth even more. But why is it going up? Because it's suggesting that you might not have to split a lot of stuff. Is because when you split a stock, it creates uncertainty and nobody knows what the hell's going to go on, what they're going to buy, what they're going to spin off. And that uncertainty is probably going to hurt the stock price at first. When a couple of years you recognize that value, that's probably why you're seeing Google up a lot. And we nailed this one. It's in the portfolio. Listen, we just bought one of the biggest, greatest companies on earth. When did you say? Like a year and a half ago? 2 years ago?
Just under 2 years. It'd be 2 years
and we're
on
up
the
what?
13th.
Close to 80%?
Yep,
so
77 as
40% average annual returns, maybe a little bit less than that because we did it in March, right? So, but huge returns, much, much better than the overall market, buying pretty much one of the biggest companies in the world. Why take on any other risk if you could do that, right? And that's why you're wondering why they have such a huge concentration, these big companies. It's not just a huge concentration. They're growing earnings by 20, 30%, and they're massive, and they're trillion-dollar companies. But as long as they're growing like that, you're going to see their stock price continue to go higher. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon for a lot of these companies, including Google and Apple. So really good stuff there.
Yeah. One final thought. This is clear as mud as everything else is because the judge, Amit Mehta, I don't know how you say that, actually ruled that they are a monopoly. So it's kind of like a insider trading or the trading rules, the banksters, again, out of respect. Hey, we're not doing any wrong. We're just going to pay some fines. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. I love this. Like, yeah, you're not monopoly, but, and like you said, I think it is cool because of AI, there's competition.
But AI,
the free market is still alive and well, although it's being attacked here in the US.
But is it because 2 years ago, you could say, Daniel, 2 years ago, AI wasn't, just started really 2 years ago, right? I mean, basically the large language models, ChatGPT. So if you're saying that you're okay with this deal now because you see a lot of competition coming in from AI, those generative models and stuff like that, large language models, where the F were you for the 10 years before that? Because what you're saying is this is the biggest monopoly we've ever seen and we did nothing about it. But now we're not going to do anything about it because now finally there's more competition coming into the market. right? So it's kind of crazy that he phrased it that way, because where the hell were you for 10 years before AI came in?
Oh, Frank.
But you
Then
don't
we
want
have
to
to
think that.
perceive to look
I don't
out
wanna
for
think that.
individual investors. It's not the actual goal; it's the
Yeah.
perception.